Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a close look at the business career of Donald Trump, sort of digging into his deals and strategies way before he got into politics.
Yeah, we've got, a pretty detailed Wikipedia overview and a couple of helpful BBC News reports to guide us.
Exactly. And the mission really is to pull out the most interesting bits, the key insights from his journey as a businessman.
Right. We want to give you a clear picture of how he operated, the strategies, the wins, and also the times things didn't quite go to plan. It's about understanding that business background, which, informs a lot later on.
Okay, so let's get right to the start. He began, 1968? At his father Fred Trump's company, Trump Management?
Mm-hmm. And that company wasn't building, like, flashy Manhattan towers back then. It was mostly middle-class rental housing. Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island.
A very different focus.
Totally different. And you could really see Fred Trump's influence in those early years. His father was known for, solid construction, but also for being really, really careful with money. Penny pinching, almost.
A stickler for value, as they say.
Exactly. And always looking for tax breaks. You see some of that in Donald Trump's first projects, like trying to turn around an apartment complex in Cincinnati.
And it's important to note, he had a bit of a leg up, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He reportedly received significant untaxed gifts from his father. We're talking potentially millions in today's money.
Really?
Plus, Fred's connections were key.
Right. Co-signing loans, providing backing. Crucial for those first big Manhattan plays, like the Grand Hyatt.
Which really marks that shift, doesn't it? Moving away from the outer boroughs, setting sights on Manhattan, bigger deals, more glamour.
He became president of the company in 71, I think?
Yep, 71. And then renamed it the Trump Organization around 73, clearly signaling bigger ambitions.
Though even early on, there was some controversy, that Justice Department lawsuit in 73.
Ah, yes, alleging racial discrimination in housing practices. That's a significant piece of the early story.
They settled it without admitting wrongdoing, but it was there.
It was. And it raises questions, about the practices alongside that early growth. It's part of the context.
Okay, let's talk key deals. The Grand Hyatt Hotel, 1978, his first really big splash in Manhattan.
And what stands out there is the negotiation. He managed to get this massive, 40-year tax abatement from the city.
How did he swing that?
Well, in return for a cut of the hotel's profits, it showed, a knack for leveraging city incentives, making the deal less risky for investors. Really quite strategic for an early deal.
And his father's quiet help was still there, too.
Definitely. Those connections still mattered.
Then came Trump Tower, 83. Probably his most famous building.
Arguably, yeah. Super iconic.
Yeah.
But a complicated development involved tearing down the Bonwit Teller store.
Right, and that caused a stir. The Art Deco sculpture.
Exactly. Destroying those sculptures was a big controversy. And there were also reports about using undocumented Polish workers, paying them very little.
So it shows maybe a willingness to cut corners or prioritize speed and cost.
It suggests that, prioritizing getting it done, sometimes overlooking other concerns like preservation or labor practices. But the building itself, huge success, put him firmly on the map, served as his home, his HQ. Great for his image.
He didn't just stay in Manhattan, though. Atlantic City was next.
Oh, yeah. The casinos, hurrahs at Trump Plaza, Trump Castle, and the big one, the Trump Taj Mahal. Huge ambition, huge risk.
Especially the Taj Mahal, right? The financing was shaky.
Very shaky. Finance with tons of high-interest junk bonds, high risk, high reward, potentially. But it made the whole thing really vulnerable.
And that led to one of his bankruptcies down the line.
It did. Atlantic City really shows that boom and bust cycle that kind of became a recurring theme in his career.
We also saw him buy Mar-a-Lago down in Florida.
Turned into that exclusive private club. Again, building that image of wealth, exclusivity.
And the Woolman Rink, that's a classic story.
It really is. The city couldn't get it renovated. Project dragged on forever. He steps in, gets it done relatively fast.
And made sure everyone knew about it.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic PR move for him. Made him look like the decisive guy who could fix things.
There were some misses, too, though. That Television City idea.
Right, on the west side. That didn't happen as he planned. Eventually became Riverside South, but mostly developed by others.
He owned the Plaza Hotel for a while, too.
Yep, bought it, then later sold it. But he did successfully renovate 40 Wall Street, branded it the Trump Building.
And made a good profit selling the General Motors building.
True, he kept adding Manhattan properties, like Trump World Tower, but then came the big shift towards licensing.
Putting his name on buildings globally without necessarily owning them.
Exactly. Mixed results there, Some projects did well, others faced foreclosure, like some in Florida, even controversies, like in Turkey.
And that Trump Bay Street project with Jared Kushner, that was licensing too.
Primarily, yeah. And it used that EB-5 visa program, getting funding from Chinese investors seeking green cards.
Interesting connection. And
Yeah.
Bank of China involved in refinancing another building.
Yeah. 1290 Avenue of the Americas shows he wasn't shy about dealing with international finance when it suited him.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Golf courses. He has a lot of those, right?
A significant number, yeah. Owned or managed.
And some controversy there too, particularly in Scotland.
Oh, definitely. The Trump International Golf Links development faced huge local opposition. Environmental concerns lost its special scientific status. It was a whole saga.
And he bought the famous Turnberry Resort too.
He did, though its future hosting the Open Championship became uncertain because of the Trump Organization ties.
Beyond real estate and golf, sports, he dipped his toe in there too.
He did, most famously owning the New Jersey Generals in the USFL.
A rival football league.
Right. He really pushed to compete directly with the NFL, moved the season to the fall, hired Doug Flutie. Big splash.
But the league collapsed.
Yeah, after that big antitrust lawsuit against the NFL, which they technically won but got awarded like $1. The league folded soon after. It was a bold, disruptive move, but ultimately didn't work.
He tried to buy other teams too.
Looked at the Cleveland Indians, expressed interest in the Buffalo Bills later on, clearly wanted a piece of major American sports,
And boxing.
promoted some big fights in Atlantic City, especially Mike Tyson's bouts,
Fit the casino scene?
sponsored a cycling race, the Tour de Trump.
Huh? Yes. The Tour de Trump. It later became the Tour de Punt after he stepped away. Another branding play, really.
He even considered buying Rangers, the Scottish soccer club.
Apparently so. Lots of feelers put out in the sports world. Also, interestingly, he was quite critical of the NFL's rules on concussions later on.
Okay, what about beauty pageants?
Ah, yes. He owned Miss Universe, Miss USA, and Miss Teen USA for quite a while, from 96 to 2015.
Another platform for visibility.
Absolutely. Big media exposure, helped cultivate a certain image. He eventually sold his stake in 2015. Oh, and he founded Trump Model Management, too.
Right. Now, one of the more, let's say, contentious ventures, Trump University.
Contentious is a good word. It was a for-profit company offering real estate seminars and training.
But it wasn't actually a university. That was the core issue. The name itself led to multiple lawsuits, claiming it was basically a scam using false advertising.
And he ended up settling those.
Yes, for $25 million. Though he spent a lot of time criticizing the judge involved, it was definitely a black eye reputationally.
He was also involved with ACN, Inc., a multi-level marketing company.
Yeah, he was paid to promote them.
Yeah.
That also led to a lawsuit alleging fraud and racketeering involving him and his children.
Seems like a pattern of lending his name out, which sometimes backfired.
It could be lucrative, but yeah, carried risks if the ventures went south or faced legal trouble. That lawsuit, interestingly, led to a judge ordering the release of unaired tapes from The Apprentice.
And the Donald J. Trump Foundation started as a charity.
It did, back in '88. But over time, it was mostly funded by outside donors, not Trump himself.
And it got into trouble.
Big trouble. Investigations, allegations of self-dealing, using foundation money for personal or business expenses, even political contributions.
So not operating like a proper charity.
That was the allegation. New York State ordered it to stop fundraising, then the Attorney General sued. It resulted in the foundation being dissolved and Trump having to pay damages. Major legal and ethical issues raised there.
Let's talk branding overall. That name, Trump, is everywhere.
It's central to everything, isn't it? He built this incredibly valuable brand, at least in his estimation. He put a huge number on it.
Though other estimates were lower.
Often significantly lower, yes. And it's key to remember, like we said, many buildings with his name, just licensing deals. He doesn't own them.
Has the brand value changed, do you think, with politics and controversies?
There's definitely been discussion about that. Some analysts suggest it might have declined in certain markets or demographics,
Yeah.
but he's still leveraging it. Look at the recent promotion of that God Bless the USA Bible under a paid license. The brand is still active.
Finally, let's just touch on his other investments, stocks, bonds.
Yeah, reports indicate he had a pretty significant personal investment portfolio. Stocks, bonds, funds. Shifted more towards stocks around 2011.
Claimed he was pretty good at stock trading.
He did report a high success rate, yeah. Portfolio included lots of well-known companies, mutual funds, hedge funds, even held treasury bonds and physical gold. Diversified.
And taxes. Always a big topic. He never released his full returns publicly.
famously declined, citing ongoing IRS audits, which, didn't necessarily prevent release. He did release some financial info, reported income figures, gross revenues.
But that 1995 tax return leak was huge.
Massive. Revealed a $916 million loss, which likely allowed him to avoid paying federal income taxes for potentially many years.
And the New York Times investigation into his tax strategies.
Right, suggesting potentially legally dubious methods back in the 90s to minimize taxes. Lots of scrutiny around his finances and tax practices over the years.
So wrapping this up, it's quite a journey. Ambitious, aggressive deal-making, constant brand building.
Absolutely. A real roller coaster, taking big risks, leading sometimes to bankruptcies, but also achieving major successes, especially in branding and licensing later on.
His father's influence seems key, especially early on.
Definitely. Both the financial help and maybe some of that cost-conscious deal-making philosophy. And that shift to licensing was really pivotal for his wealth.
It really gives you a lot of context for understanding his approach later, doesn't it?
It does. You see the patterns, the negotiation style, the focus on image, the willingness to challenge norms. It all provides a lens.
So here's something to leave you with. Thinking about this whole business trajectory, all the ups and downs, the strategies, how do you think those decades in business truly shaped his later path? What lessons, good or bad, can we take away from his time in the business world versus other arenas?
That's the big question, isn't it? Plenty to chew on there.
Thanks for joining us for this